So I just watched Supergirl, and before we dive into my thoughts on the movie, there are some things that I wish to address first. I have to admit, I did not go into this movie expecting much, simply because of all the reviews on the internet from early showing and the criticisms I see from people who have seen the movie, even the reactions from the marketing, the trailers, and the interviews. It just didn't seem like the movie was going to do that well. Now that I have seen the movie, is it really as bad as people are making it out to be? Personally, I don't think so. That is not to say that this was a great movie. This movie certainly had many flaws, but it wasn't offensively bad like the way Madam Web, Morbius, or Craven were bad. And it didn't push the gender politic message in your face like the way Barbie or shows like She-Hulk and Ironheart did. Most of the flaws just existed in the plot of the movie. But I have to be fair with other criticism that I find valid, which is this movie did feel like Guardians of the Galaxy without the charm, the humor, and the team chemistry. Basically Guardians of the Galaxy without all the good stuff. And even though James Gunn was not the director of the movie, it did feel like the director and the screenwriter were trying to copy James Gunn's style. And speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, there are resemblance between this version of Supergirl and MCU's version of Star-Lord. The trench coat aside, the retro headset in this movie really didn't make that much sense. And all they had to do was to say, oh, it's from Clark Kent from when he was younger, because he did grow up on Earth, and it does make sense for him to have a headset from that era that he doesn't use anymore. But the movie didn't even bother giving in explanations to that. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's start with the things that I didn't like, since it seems like most people didn't like the movie. First off, the villain really didn't work for me. We have Millie Alcock as the Supergirl and Jason Momoa as Lobo in the movie, yet our main villain is Taserface from Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
I'm sorry. Your name is... It's Taserface?
That is a strange choice to me. And even though he is menacing and he is wacky and he is pure evil, I did not care for him at all in the movie. And another thing I really did not enjoy was the needle drop in the movie. The original score were pretty good, but the licensed music, like every 2 minutes we have to play a fun pop song. It kind of reminded me of the 2016 Suicide Squad all over again, where it's just song after song after song, and it got annoying very quickly. And then the script, there surely were a lot of plot conveniences. Like right after Supergirl rejected to help Ruthie to avenge for her family, Taserface showed up, stole Supergirl's ship, and shot her dog. But instead of using lethal force, Taserface shot the dog with a poison dart, which set off a 3-day timer for Supergirl to save the dog. And then there was that couple who betrayed Supergirl and poisoned her, but immediately changed their mind and tried to help her. And then there was that scene towards the end where Supergirl got shot by multiple kryptonite arrow and just recover from them immediately. For something that is Kryptonian's one weakness, those arrows really did not seem to work that well. And speaking of that scene, the blood cell turning green, like the visual, just didn't work for me. Like I understand what they were trying to convey with those things, but I feel like there had to be more creative ways to convey that message other than the ones we got. Also, the killing of Taserface really bothered me, because throughout the movie we were taught that Supergirl is someone who advocates the no-kill rule. Even right before she executed Taserface, she gave a speech to Ruthie about how revenge is not gonna bring her parents back, and she's only going to spiral down a dark path if she killed Taserface. And then she just executed him. And when that happened, I was like, if only we had an organization in this universe that we can introduce that serves as the cop in space. Like, what an opportunity that we just wasted here. And it didn't really make sense to me why Supergirl and decided to stay on Earth. The adventure we had in the movie, to me, did not justify the sudden change of heart that Supergirl had in the end. Now let's talk about the things that I actually enjoyed from the movie. I thought Millie Alcock did a fantastic job as Supergirl. Like many of you, I was introduced to her from House of the Dragon. I remember thinking, wow, this young actress has some serious talent here. And I was kind of sad that they had to recast her due to the progression of the show, where they just had to find an older actress to play the older version of the character. So I was pleasantly surprised when I found out in the end of Superman that she was going to be the new Supergirl in James Gunn's DC universe. Now, I have seen some people making fun of her on the internet, and I just have to say, it is 2026. I just thought that we could do better than that in the joke department. And speaking of the casting, I want to talk about Lobo. Now, I had my concern when I found out that Jason Momoa was going to play Lobo in the movie. Even though Lobo from the comic and Jason Momoa almost look identical, I still thought that there was a chance that Jason Momoa was going to phone it in. I don't read comic books, so I don't know what Lobo is like in the comic, but I'm happy to say that his version of Lobo works really well. He really chewed up all the scenes that he was in. It's just a shame that he wasn't really featured that heavily in the movie. And I remember thinking in the middle of the movie that the chemistry between Supergirl and Ruthie is like pretty good, but then there were a couple of scenes where Ruthie was interacting with Lobo, and I was like, their chemistry here is so good. It kind of reminded me of another comic book movie duel where one of them was another grumpy, huge, jacked man, and the other a child who doesn't really understand social cues. An artistic child, if you will. All I'm trying to say is that they had great chemistry, and I would love to see them interact with each other more in the future project, but I doubt that's going to happen. Back to the movie itself, I thought the "don't be nice, be good" message fits perfectly for this version of Supergirl. That is such a simple yet effective message to help us understand Supergirl as a character. And I've heard some criticism surrounding this version of Supergirl about how she is just an annoying drunken mess, which makes her very unlikable as a character. I don't think that's fair. Just because your main character is a drunken mess doesn't mean that they cannot also be charming. And I thought Millie Alcock brought so much personality to this character that she was successful at bringing us a charming Supergirl. And another thing I want to talk about is I heard a lot of people on the internet saying this movie is ugly. I don't think that is entirely wrong. Like visual wise, many things in the movie were very washed out. And it also doesn't help that earlier this year we were shown a space movie that happened to be one of the most beautiful movies I have ever seen, and now we have a space movie that looks like this. Like, I think that's a fair critique on the movie, but that's not to say this movie is all ugly, because there were some scenes in the movie where I found the contrast, the visual hierarchy, and the color palette to be very effective. And there were scenes that I found very impactful, like the silent scream. At least I thought that was a really good scene. So in conclusion, if you're just looking for a fun time at the movie theater, go watch it. Supergirl is not going to disappoint you. But if you are looking to be impressed by a superhero film, I don't think Supergirl offers anything memorable. Like, I feel like in the long term, people are going to forget about this movie very quickly. So yeah, that basically concluded my thoughts on Supergirl. Bye!